No, there's no.
All right.
There's the need to.
Yeah, we are going to do
There you go.
we are going to do revision today. I hope you turn on your video and unmute yourself. But when you need to speak, please remember to mute to unmute it. Please remember to unmute when you need to speak.
Okay.
Um, okay, we have spent about 40 hours on this topic, humanistic Buddhism. Um, we began with the first chapter on the humanistic nature of Buddhism. Now that is a very important topic because even though in the later stage, Venerable Taishi promoted the ideal of humanistic Buddhism, we could find that the original teachings of the Buddha was in fact very humanistic in nature. Therefore, we spent quite some time on the humanistic nature of Buddhism. And before we talk about Venerable Taishi, and before we talk about Venerable Taishi, who was one of the earliest proponents of this concept of humanistic Buddhism, we have to understand the history and the cultural backgrounds of the Chinese. Therefore, we proceeded to discuss about the pluralistic nature of Chinese belief, where Chinese people normally believed in a combination of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and even folk religious beliefs. That was to give you an idea of the cultural background of the Chinese. Then we began to look at the history of Buddhism in China, beginning with the arrival of Buddhist monks, said to be officially during the 1st century AD in China. Then which then undergone the period of arrival and translation, and then the second period of interpretation, where the Chinese try to understand and interpret the Buddhism according to their own understanding. And then the third period of establishment, then the fourth stage of decline during the Qing dynasty. Then we try to understand the during the Qing dynasty. Then only we proceeded to talk about Venerable Taishi. But before that, we have to deal with some of the contemporaries or people who were earlier than him, such as Yang Wenhui and also Aoyang Jian, for the work that they have done, and also for the promotion of lay Buddhism, which we can see, which we can assume to be an offshoot of humanistic Buddhism. Then only we talk about humanistic Buddhism of Venerable Taishi. So from there, we talk about the activities, the movement that was started by Venerable Taishi with the slogan of 人生佛教 or humanistic Buddhism. And that concept actually, while being promoted in mainland China, was not really taking root. And it was said that actually Taishi was quite a failure. And by the time when he passed away in 1947, the majority of the Chinese in mainland China were still following the traditional Buddhism and not the humanistic Buddhism that he was talking about. And then by the time of 1949, when the Communist Party took over China, then there was generally a clamp down on all religious activities. And we could see that there was, in fact, further deterioration during the early communist period, especially from 1949 onwards until the cultural revolutions and so on. Especially during the cultural revolution, Buddhism was also categorized as one of the causes for the problems faced by China. With Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism were all classified as old poisonous teachings that caused the downfall of China. But at the same time, after 1949, there were a group of monks who followed the Chiang Kai-shek's army to Taiwan, and there they took root. And at the beginning, there was still not much of a progress, but they begin to show significant improvement after the 1980s, when the economic development in Taiwan provided a lot of advantages, and then the globalization allowed Taiwanese Buddhism to move to the world, and also the internal reasons where a lot of Chinese in Taiwan still regarded themselves as Buddhists, no matter how decayed Buddhism would have been at that time, but most people still supported Buddhism, and therefore with the economic power, with the internal strength, they managed to bring Buddhism forward. And the slogan that was generally used at that time was Humanistic Buddhism. So out of the four mountains, Guangshan, Shiji, and Dhammatrams all used the slogan of Humanistic Buddhism. The only exception was Zhongtai's temple, which actually falls under the category of traditional Buddhism, where they emphasize a lot on chant or meditation. And then, of course, a further impetus to this humanistic Buddhism in Taiwan was the work of Venerable Ying Sun. Therefore, we spent quite a bit of time to talk about Venerable Ying Sun's contribution. And also, we had activists, example like Venerable Chao Hui, which we discussed. Okay, then from Taiwan, we move on to Malaysia, because Malaysia also was influenced greatly by Chinese culture, where most of the adherents of Buddhism were Chinese. 99% or 98% of the Buddhists in Malaysia are Chinese. Therefore, we spent some time to look at the characteristics of Malaysian Buddhism, especially its socially engaged aspect. Then we move on to Vietnam. This area was also very much influenced by China historically and culturally. And during the Vietnamese War, a lot of monks, in order to protect Buddhism, sacrificed their life and went to the streets, demonstrated, or even burned themselves to death to champion the cause of Buddhism. And from then on, this word, socially engaged Buddhism, was promoted by Thich Nhat Hanh. And therefore, we could see that socially engaged Buddhism is also an offshoot of humanistic Buddhism. And this was admitted by Thich Nhat Hanh, since he himself has read the work of Venerable Ying Sun and also Venerable Tai Shi, due to the close affinity of Vietnamese and Chinese Buddhism during that time. And then from Vietnam, we look at Sri Lanka, home of the Theravada Buddhism in the world today. We must say that the Third Council the Arahan Mahinda arrived in Sri Lanka and brought the Buddhism to Sri Lanka. So we dealt with a little bit of history of Sri Lanka, but we concentrated more on the so-called revival that took place from 1800 onwards, and in particular around 1850 onwards. So we had to deal with two important personalities, this Colonel O'Cott from USA and also Anagarika Dhammapada. And they were engaged in trying to revive Buddhism. But earlier than them, we have the Kevena or the Buddhist colleges that were set up by a number of monks. So that period was described in Sri Lanka. They don't use the word humanistic Buddhism, neither did they use the word engaged Buddhism, but a professor has described it as Protestant Buddhism. So we discussed about Protestant Buddhism and why it is called Protestant Buddhism. Then after that, we went back to the home of the Buddha in India, where we tried to understand the history of how Buddhism in India developed, and then the spread, especially during Ashoka's time, and then developed again during the later dynasty, and then eventually there was we call it a demise of Buddhism in India. But strictly speaking, it was not a total demise because there was still some Buddhists left in India, but perhaps a very insignificant number compared with the big population in India, especially near the area on top of Bangladesh and the area in the Bihar state. There were still quite a number of Buddhists. But then we saw how Dr. Ambedkar make use of Buddhism to bring people out of the caste discrimination. So we have to talk about Dr. Ambedkar. Then from there on, we move on to the neighbor of India. We talk about the early monks, like for example, Uttama, who fought the British in order to gain independence for Myanmar. Then the Venerable Visara. These were the early monks who were politically and actively involved, even though there were no specific terms used to describe those movements at that time. Generally, we say they are political monks. Then, of course, we try to relate some of the contemporary issues, the Rohingya issues, and the 969 movement in Burma. And then after that, we are supposed to go to Thailand. But since we don't have time, we will do it probably if we have time after the revision. Otherwise, we will leave Thailand alone. So now, today we are going to, I'll give you a cursory description of what we had covered. So now we would like to go through the revision in more details. So I had emailed to you all much earlier the various topics that we would like to discuss. So I can't remember the topics now. The first few topics was about the humanistic nature of Buddhism. So perhaps some of you would like to share with me now, so that I don't have to keep on talking and talking. That I can take a rest while I listen. We can talk about the first two topics. So can we have some volunteer, please? I hope you have distributed among yourself whom to talk on what. Yes.
I can talk about the first one.
Okay, Koshika.
So the first question is discussed with reference to Mangal Sutta, why Buddhism is humanistic. So the Mangal Sutta is when a deity comes down to where Buddha was residing at the time and asking Buddha, what are the blissful things, blessings that benefits both humans and devas, deities. So, and Buddha explained a certain number of things. In the class, we discussed about 6 different, I guess 4 or 5 different aspects of humanistic nature of Buddhism. The person who founded Buddhism, the teaching, the foundation of Buddhism, the system of thought, practical daily life aspects, as well as the human ethics. I find all of these things are one way or the other referenced within the Mangala Sutta. For example, as far as human ethics are concerned, in Mangala Sutta, there's one verse, Mata Pitu Upattana Puttadara Sangho, meaning taking care of your mother, taking care of your wife, taking care of your children, your offsprings, attending to mother and father, such and so forth. And there's another one, Arati Viriti Papa, Majjapana Sangyamo, Arati Viriti Papa. So, excuse me, not doing bad things, not intoxicating oneself. So those to me is ethics, human ethics more than anything else. So following human ethics, or if human follow human ethics and don't harm other people and take care of each other, that itself shows the humanistic nature of Buddhism. And I find it fascinating that a deity comes down to earth and asking Buddha what to do, and Buddha is explaining it in the terms of for all sentient beings, not just humans, not just deities, for everyone's benefit, what can be done. And Buddha distinguished himself. I think this is another reference where Buddha distinguished himself from the earlier Brahmanical teaching, where Brahmanical thought process was always the vertical connected. God is centered to everything. So eventually, it's going back to God. But here itself, Buddha is describing things in a certain way that this is not related to God. This is something people can do on earth itself, or humans can do on earth itself. So that again, I found to be Buddha humanizing his teaching rather than trying to somehow one way or the other relate Buddhism into another form of Brahmanism. Other references, I think within the Mangala Sutta itself, Buddha references the Chaturarya Satya, Arya Ashtangika Marga, the 8 worldly facts. In Sinhala, I think it's called Atalodama, 8 worldly facts. There are references to those. I think Puttasaloka Dhammehi Chittang Yasana Kampati. So people who don't falter, don't waver when they run into worldly things. That itself is referenced within the Mangala Sutta. So Buddha not only explained his teaching within Mangala Sutta, he gave references to human ethics, gave references to daily practical daily living. I think I rambled too much. So again, that's in a summary how I would answer that question.
Thank you very much, Toshita. Well said. Just a little bit of comment. I just shared with you this particular one. Mangala Sutta. This is to help those who are not covering this topic. Toshita had given us a good sketch of Mangala Sutta and its relationship to humanistic Buddhism. So if you were to answer this question in examination, you try to cover all possible aspects. For example, he talks about human relationship, our attitude. We talk about we need to have skills and discipline, and then household life, which you have mentioned, social services, and then from there on, then we move on to moral development, and then listening to the Dhamma, discussion of the Dhamma, and then enlightenment, pure and peaceful mind. So if you look at it, actually there's a scheme in the Mangala Sutta that taught us from the beginning from our own attitude, locality, and so on. Then we move on to moral development. Then after that, it moves on to spiritual development, about listening to the Dharma, discussion of Dharma, and then on the enlightenment aspect, living a holy life, theory and church life, perception of the noble truth, and the realization of Nibbana. So it is a comprehensive coverage for a layman's life, beginning from holy life of taking care of parents, having a good occupation, and so on. After that, to personal development. After that, to spiritual development. And in all this, there is no mention of God or theistic in nature. No mention that you should pray to a God. But it is all about human beings and a human effort for realization of the Four Noble Truths and the perception of the Four Noble Truths and the realization of Nibbana. So this is how we can say the Mangala Sutta is a very good summary of what is expected of a lay Buddhist. And this summary clearly shows that this is very humanistic. It's all about human life. There's no reliance on any third party for our salvation. Okay, thank you very much, Krishna. Who else would like to take on the next topic?
I'll do number 2. So
Okay.
number 2 was discuss husband-wife relationship and employer-employee relationship as mentioned in the Sigalovada Sutta. The Sigalovada Sutta is in reference to when the Buddha ran into a boy named Sigala. And Sigala worshipped the 4 directions plus the earth and sky. The Buddha had asked him why. Sigala had responded that his father had told him to do so. So in his father's honor, that's what the boy was doing. And the Buddha took the time to teach Sigala how to worship the 6 directions as a noble one would. So to just pinpoint the 2 that were referenced for husband and wife and employer, the Buddha said the wife should be regarded as the West. The husband should take care of the wife by treating her with respect, by being faithful to her, handing over authority to her, and providing her with adornments, or simply put, honor her, respect her, be faithful to her, and share authority and provide gifts. And in return, the wife should show her compassion to the husband by performing her duties well, being hospitable to all those who are around her, by being faithful to her husband, by looking after the household property, and being diligent in all of her duties. In simpler terms, organize duties, be hospitable, be faithful, and be wise with budgeting and skillful. So, and then the Buddha gave the example of employer and employee relationship, or worker relationship. He referred to them as nadir. It's known as below, or the earth. And the employer should take care of the workers by assigning work according to the strength of the worker, by providing them with food and wages, by attending to their medical and health needs, by sharing in excellent tastes, or otherwise rewarding them with food and belongings and things like that. And be sure to give them breaks and time off, or vacations. So the worker employee should rise before them, should retire after them, and take only what is given to them. They should work well and spread allegiance, or spread a good word of their name. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. If you look at the Sigalovada Sutta, each one has got 10 subject matters brought up by the Buddha. 5 from the husband and 5 from the wife. And parents and children, 5 from the parents, 5 from the children. So altogether, you will have how many? 60. That's why it will be too difficult for you to remember all. That's why I only asked for 2 as example. But the whole idea was, from the Mangala Sutta, we would come to know that the Buddha's advice to the lay person was just simply to take care of all these relationships and taking care of the relationship with the religious teachers, or we call this aspect the religious life, is only one aspect of the six. And therefore, in this sutta, we can see that there is a lot of emphasis on how we should conduct our life as a human being in this social world. So it is a sutta that again gave emphasis on the humanistic aspect of our life, not a teaching that asks you to believe this, believe that, go to God, and so on. But it is all about human life.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Corey.
No problem.
Yeah.
I just focused on the husband, wife, and employer.
Yeah. That's what I asked, because I know it's too much if I ask you to remember 60 items. And,
Yeah.
So also in the Mangala Sutta, there are 38 blessings. So it's quite a challenge if you want to remember all the 38 blessings. But of course, if you follow the oral traditions of ancient people, you still could remember them. The ancient people memorize all these things. But you look at the scheme of things, how it was laid down, then probably you can remember them better. So okay, that was it for the two main topics about from the sutta's relationship with the humanistic Buddhism. Can we go to the third topic now? Who would like to speak on the third one?
I'll do number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3 is discussed with reference to the 6 virtues of the Dharma. Why Buddhism is humanistic. The Dharma taught by the Buddha is the universal law in this world. And he taught us the Dharma that he understands from what he has enlightened. His teaching is based on rationality, not authority. Especially he does not claim to represent any third party. It's all by himself that he enlightened and he understands and he taught us. And in his teaching, he has 6 virtues, or we can say 6 characteristics also. 1, the Dhamma is well preached, swakato. The Dhamma is the universal law. It found through enlightenment and is preached precisely by the Buddha. It is excellent in the beginning, sila or moral principles, excellent in the middle, samadhi or concentration, and excellent in the end, panna or wisdom. Number 2 is a sandihiko. It is visible in this world. It means that we could obtain the fruit, or we can liberate in this very world. We don't have to wait for the next life or wait for another time. The Dhamma could be tested through the practice and none by direct experience. So it is very visible in this world that you can all practice and experience on it yourself. It is immediate, akaliko, a present moment. The Dhamma can give the timeless and immediate results here and now, for which there is no need to wait until the future or next existence. Number 4, it invites everybody to come and see, ehi-pasiko, to experience it yourself. Number 5, opanayiko, leading to the goal. The Dhamma is capable of being entered upon, and therefore it is worthy to be followed as a part of one's life. So this is, the Dhamma that he taught can lead us to the liberation. Number 6, it is to be understood individually by the wise ones, pachatam veditabo vinohi. No one could do it for you. You have to do it yourself. So from these 6 virtues of the Dhamma, it's very clear that Buddhism is humanistic, because he taught the human. He taught us to do it yourself. He doesn't say that you have to depend on him, you have to depend on the God or anyone, because everything is up to us. It's a very humanistic. So this is my answer.
Thank you very much, Venerable. Very well said.
Thank you.
Very complete. Perhaps I only can add that we can emphasize that this is very much different from theistic religion, where emphasis will be on prayer to God, and the result of the fruits can only be realized after you are dead, when you will be promised heaven or hell. So the result is to be seen only after we are dead. But for the Buddha's teaching, the result is for us human beings to experience here and now. Thank you very much. Well said. Okay, shall we go on to number 4?
I do. Number 4 question is discussed with reference to the system of thought. Why Buddhism is humanistic? There are several aspects that can illustrate that the Buddhism is humanistic rather than theistic. The Buddha is the founder of Buddhism, and he is an enlightened human being, not an agent of God or representation of God. Buddha is regarded as a teacher, not as a savior. Therefore, the Buddhism is humanistic, not theistic. From the system in Buddhism, it outlines the purpose of the teachings. The teachings are to solve universal human problems, not those of any race or nation, and not the problems created by God. There is no role for God. Human effort is the only base for solutions. There are no other known or unknown parties involved. So self-determinism takes precedence over the God determinism. The teachings are based on rationality, not authority, and open to everybody. All phenomena is this would follow the law of causality, cause and effect, not a presentiment by God. The teachings emphasize that the humans have the power and potentials to make changes, as humans have the capacity to memorize things, follow the morality, and can be very diligent to achieve goals. The beliefs that the teachings are visible and immediate in this world, no need to wait until after the death. These are also the reasons why the Buddhism is humanistic. The teachings focus on daily living. The daily practice emphasize on mind, body, and speech cultivation, which cover every aspect of life, from individual to family, to society, to economics, to politics. From the Signavata Sutta, it clearly shows that the teachings are socially engaged. Based on the definition of religion, which is derived from the fear of unknown and unexplained. The Buddhism is not a religion. The Buddhism focused on the development of the mind, not to perpetuate fear, but to be enlightened. Theistic uses God or gods as an answer for the creation methods. However, the Buddha's teachings are to follow the Dharma, the truth of reality, which is Naka, Dukkha, and Anatta. In conclusion, from the aspect of the founder, systems of thought, the basis of teachings, daily living, human-centered teachings, and the definition of religion, the humanistic, not a theistic. So this is my answer.
Thank you very much, Wendy. You covered very comprehensively. I would like just to make a little bit of addition here about system of thought, because this is the part that I did not write down the notes in detail, so some of you might have missed it. When we talk about system of thought, if you compare with theistic religion, then you realize that the system of thought, like I mentioned to you, a car has a system. You have the engine, you have the axle, you have the wheel drive, finally the wheel. So it has a system. So when we talk about theistic system, they talk about a myth, M-Y-T-H-S, a myth of creation by God. And then Adam and Eve sinned. And therefore God was very angry and chased them out of the garden. And therefore we must now pray to God so that one day we will be forgiven and return back to the kingdom of God. So there is a system of thought. So we need to emphasize, when we talk about system of thought in Buddhism, we need to talk about this Buddhist system of thought is not about this kind of myths about creation, we sin, and so on and so on. But it's about the system of thought in Buddhism is about the problem of our human life now. And that we call it dukkha. The problem of human life now, dukkha. And in our system of thought, we believe that this dukkha or unsatisfactoriness, or Venerable Thanissaro used the word stress, is caused by craving, which is the second noble truth. The second noble truth, the cause of dukkha is craving. And then we went on to the third noble truth, saying that this dukkha can cease and we can have a better alternative. We call it the nibbana. That is the cessation of dukkha. And then the most fantastic one is we have a clear path leading to the nibbana. And that is called the fourth noble truth. Fourth noble truth, the noble eightfold path. So this is the system of thought in Buddhism. So when we talk about system of thought in Buddhism, we must mention this dukkha, cause of dukkha, cessation of dukkha, and the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. But I didn't write any notes here. Okay, thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on the next one?
Which number? Number 5, number 6.
Oh,
Number
okay.
5.
No, there's no final.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay, number 6. Answer this one. Let's give a brief summary of history of Buddha in China. Beginning with the entry and translated interpretation, establishment, and eventual decline. The Buddhism China, as we know, in the 2nd century BC. According to the Lewis handle, maybe this one is a scholarship, I think. In 1923, he divided the period of Buddhism history in China into 4. The first period, that of the translation of propagations of the faith, ended in 420 AD. In Han Dynasty, Dong Hanmingdi established the White House Temple to support the Western region's monks, Kasayapa, Matanga, and Dhamma Rikasa. Translated work, the Sutra of 42 chapters is first translated into Chinese. It is the beginning of the Buddhism China. Along to keep Buddhism observances, monasteries will build 90% Buddhists. Buddha Singha Kamarajiva come to China. Buddha Singha used the Buddha teachings influence received in China. At that time, his disciples Daoan assisted Kamarajiva to translate his sutra. The Diamond Sutra, Amita Sutra, Lotus Sutra, Prajna Paramita Sutra, Daha Sutra Attic was translated Kamarajiva. The second period, that of interpenetration, lasted to the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, 618 AD. In northern and southern dynasties, Bodhidharma come to China. In imparted Dharma of Chan to his disciples Huike, the Chan school was started. In Sui and Tang Dynasty, political stability, economic prosperity lead to the advent and many sects and building of many covered temples. Master Xuanzhuang and Yi Jing started abroad in India and returned to China. They translate a lot of sutras also. The Buddhist 8 sects get achievement such as Chan, Pure Land, Vinaya, Golaba, 天台华严唯识三论 schools ethic. The Buddhism is at the peak in the time. The third, the period of establishment ended with the close of the 5 dynasties in 960 AD. The new schools development between 4th and 7th century, such as Chan Pure Land and Vinaya schools. In this period, the Buddhism through 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. Towards the end of the third period, all sects dwindle to separate Chan, because Chan school at that time branch of 5 and the Pure Land sect. The 4th period, that of decay, has extended to the present day. Song Dynasty, an important event that is to begin the woodblock printing of the Tripitaka. Confucianists, Zhuxi ethic scholars, they are against Buddhism. In Yuan Dynasty, Lamassu was put in the post of priority. Call reports from of Tantra widespread. Chan and Pure Land continue to survive. In Ming Dynasty, most synthesis between Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. There are more monks dedicated to spread the great teachings of the Buddha. In Qing Dynasty, endorsed Galoba school, and the Qing government separated Buddhism from the people, so that the people could not get closer to the Buddhism doctrine and the great virtue of the eminent monks. In addition, Taiping reports purchased the thousands of monks. It is a reason for Buddhism decline. Modern Republic of China in the early years, there are many eminent monks such as Master Xu Yuan, Hong Yi, Yuan Ying and Taixu ethic, who devoted themselves to the revitalization and popularization of Buddhism. In the development of Western country, the spiritual level need to be raised, and many people are eager to learn the Dharma. However, the rise and fall of Chinese Buddhism is related to the attitude of the government toward Buddhism in every dynasties. This is my answer.
Thank you, Reverend. You have made a great effort trying to put in as much as possible.
Because Chinese history is very long. The Buddhism in every
this has to take several years for people to study the history of China. So I'm asking too much by asking you to relate it in 3 minutes. So anyway, you make a very good effort
not too long.
to share with us the 4 periods. There are actually many ways to look at the history of China, but I selected this one by this scholar, which I find that the model is easier to follow. Divided it into 4 periods, then we can understand the arrival and the eventual decline. So there is a lot of facts and figures that you have to deal with when you deal with this topic. Thank you very much. We go on to the next one. Next topic. What is the next topic now?
Okay, I will take number 7, question number 7. List and discuss the causes for the decline of Buddhism during the Qing dynasty. The decline of Chinese Buddhism during the Qing dynasty actually started in the Ming dynasty. The founding emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang, he placed very strict regulations on Buddhism. He ordered the monks to live and meditate in temples in high mountains. He also ordered the monks to either live in mountains or travel around, but not to cities or villages where ordinary people dwell. Some of the rules is like this. 2 monks might keep their hermitage in the same high mountain for meditation, but no more than 3 or 4. And another rule is the abbots or wandering monks who make friends with the officials are to be severely punished. Therefore, Chinese Buddhism rapidly declined as a result of emperor's policy of separating monks from lay Buddhism. So during the Qing dynasty, it basically inherited the Buddhism policy of the Ming dynasty to control the development of Buddhism. So Qing dynasty, in order to facilitate the management of the monasteries, Qing dynasty appointed the monk officials to command the monks, nuns throughout the country to check whether monks, nuns have violated the precepts, neglect their duties, etc., and supervise the official duties of monastic affairs. So for those who can recite a sutta and keep the monastic precepts will be issued an ordination badge to prove the monastic status. And on the ordination badge, it shows the native place, common name, age, monastery name, abbot's name, and official signature of the monk. The monks and nuns who hold the ordination badge can clarify the identity of the monks, can be protected by the government, and can also be exempt from land tax and remote services. The Qing government has many restrictions on all aspects of the temple monks and nuns. Regulations also include like a private construction or addition of monasteries and temples is not allowed. Private shading hair for ordination is not allowed. And no one is allowed to become a monk or nun if the family has less than 3 people or anyone who's over the age of 16. So a monk is only allowed to accept 1 disciple when he is over 40 years old. The monastics will receive equal punishment as a common people when committing the crimes. So Emperor Yongzheng reformed the land taxation and the tax-exempt benefit given to the ordination badge. Make the ordination badge become useless. So in the beginning of Emperor Qianlong, he abolished the ordination badge and leisure fair administration. He cut off the last connection between the court and the religion. So the quality of the monastics deteriorated, which led to the disintegration of Sangha. But another major factor causing the Buddhism decline is the Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping rebels targeted Buddhism. The destruction of the Taiping Rebellion, the destruction of the Taiping Rebellion War swept more than 10 provinces in southeastern China. Many temples, statues of gods, Buddhas, and suttas were destroyed. Suttas were burned. So in the Battle of Nanjing, the Taiping army butchered thousands of monks in Nanjing. Not long after the Taiping army was subdued, there was a movement of utilizing the temple properties for school use, which also put Buddhism in a life and death situation. So in the end of Qing Dynasty, monks were either meditating in the mountain or depending on the donations of the lay people. Isolated as they were, the only social function was to perform funeral services or some other rites and rituals. So consequently, Buddhism was criticized for its insignificant contribution to the welfare of society. The end.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I think you have done some research also. That's quite a number of information. I have given you in my lecture here 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 points as a summary, so that it's easier for you to remember all the points. Number 1 is on the policy on religions. Number 2, the decline of scholarships and studies. Number 3, organizational decay. Number 4, Taiping Rebellion. Then Christian evangelization. Then temples for education, weakening of China as a whole, and the lack of social engagement. So these 8 factors, if we are talking about the causes for the decline of Buddhism in China, we try to cover all these 8 points, even though some of them could be just covered very briefly. We try to cover all these 8 points. So in each 8 points, there are some details which I have given here. But generally, if you can cover all the 8 points, then we can have a good grasp of the causes for the decline of Buddhism in China during that time. So it's 10 o'clock now. Shall we take a rest first? Then we continue the next one.
Sure, thank you.
Back?
Yeah, believe so.
Okay. So just now, for the first 1 hour, we revised through chapter 1 to chapter 4. where chapter 1, we talk about what is humanistic Buddhism, or the humanistic nature of Buddhism. We talk about Sigalovada Sutta, Mangala Sutta, the system of thought and the virtues of the Dhamma. Then we also revise to chapter 3, but chapter 2, which is the give us an idea of the Chinese belief systems, where the Chinese belief systems is pluralistic in nature. The Chinese generally believe in Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, ancestral worship, folk belief, and Zen concept all combined together. Of course, there are some people who are more Buddhist than Confucianist, and there are some people who are more Confucianist than Buddhist. But generally, quite a number are practicing a combination of all these belief systems. Then we talk about brief history of China, where we have the first period that entered around the 420 from the 1st century AD until the 420 AD. Then the second period of interpretation lasted to the beginning of the Tang Dynasty in 618 AD. And then the third period, which ended around 960 AD. And then after that, the fourth period, that of the decline until at its greatest depth during the Qing Dynasty. And so that was the four chapters we discovered. Then after that, we discussed about the causes for the decline of Buddhism during the Qing Dynasty. So actually, you notice that actually in every chapter we have a theme. What we actually want to talk about. Of course, there are many other peripherals, many other side stories here and there, but there's a theme. So on the chapter 4, we're talking about what were the causes for the decline of Buddhism during the Qing Dynasty. So now we proceed. Because of that decline, we have people like Tai Shi, Yang Wenhui, and so on appearing on the scene. So can we have the next person to discuss about the contribution of Yang Wenhui?
I can do number 8.
Okay.
So Yang Wenhui was a layperson in 19th century China. And he was one of the first lay people to become involved in the revival of Buddhism at that period. He believed that the sutras needed to be studied by both lay people and monastics. So he established study groups and eventually schools where lay people and monastics could study the sutras together, rather than simply practicing rituals without understanding the teachings of the Buddha. So in order to carry out these studies, they of course needed text also. So he established publishing companies to publish the sutras. These publishing companies published more than 1 million copies of sutras and made the Buddhist teachings available to many people in a way that had not been possible earlier. In addition, he engaged in cooperation with and contact with other Buddhists in China and in other parts of the world as well. And this action supported his efforts at scholarship and at spreading the sutra texts among the Chinese people. Through his international contacts, he was able to find 300 sutras that had been lost in China that were still in Japan, and he was able to bring them back to China and publish them and make them available. So Yang Wenwei is a very good example of a modern Buddhist who also relied upon the original teachings of the Buddha, and that the Buddha originally said we should rely upon our own reason. We should see the teachings for ourselves rather than relying upon authority. And he encouraged this with his support of studying the sutras and making the sutras available for other people. And his involvement with people from other countries and from around the country helped to strengthen Buddhism around the world and reduce the isolationism of Buddhists that occurred during the Qing dynasty when the monastics had been forced to separate from the lay people and go off into small groups on their own. So Yang Wenwei is very important to the revival of Buddhism during the Qing dynasty and the Republican period.
SDA?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So when we talk about Yang Wenhui, we can't miss mentioning about the Jingling Sutta Printing House and then the Chinese Inner Study College. Those were the two great contributions he made. And the college which was housed inside the Qihang Lodge. And this has got a certain impact. So don't forget to mention the impact because these are the important contributions, the impact. Established by lay people, the students are mostly monks, hence can be considered as the pioneer of higher education for monks, and where lay people and monks can learn together. And it's also the first time in the history that monks are learning from the lay people, as Holmes mentioned, marks the beginning of a series of events hereafter. And also the mark feature is the proliferation of lay Buddhist group. So these were the impact of Yang Wenhui, which we should not miss mentioning. Okay. So thank you very much. Anything else? If not, we go on to the next topic. Yang Wenhui we already did it in assignment also.
I took number 9 as well. Discuss
Okay.
Taishu's concept of humanistic Buddhism from the perspective of the 5 yanas. So the 5 yanas, as Taishu developed them, were the human vehicle, the Deva vehicle, the Sravaka vehicle, and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, and the Bodhisattva vehicle. So this is different from the other interpretations of vehicles, which is just based on the types of Buddhas, for instance, Sravaka vehicle, Pratyeka Buddha vehicle, the perfectly enlightened Buddha vehicle, and the Bodhisattva vehicle. So he emphasized human practice as a vehicle. The human vehicle was based on practicing the 5 precepts and focusing on developing morality in this lifetime, leading to future human rebirth so that we could continue to practice in this. And he taught that this would then lead eventually to the Bodhisattva practice, the Bodhisattva vehicle. He did not think that in modern times it was a good idea to focus on the Deva vehicle, which was the study of the 10 wholesome precepts and meditation. He thought that the idea that this would lead to rebirth in the God realm smacked too much of theism, and he wanted to place an emphasis on the human aspect of Buddhism. He also downplayed the role of the Sravaka vehicle because he felt that in modern times, renunciation would be seen as a pessimist view of the world and escapism. And he thought we should focus in the world as it was right now and practice in the world right now. So he emphasized this, which was a break from earlier teachings. So his aims in developing these were to move Buddhism away from the superstitions that had developed in China, and to return it to the development of morality and ethics, rather than just having rituals that were practiced at death. He wanted to do other reforms. He wanted the monastics to stop living in their remote hermitages and to come to live among the people. This would help to develop the moral, precept-based human life, and to improve life in this world and decrease suffering. And he thought that the temples and the monasteries should also be changed to propagate this human life Buddhism. And I wonder why, myself, why he emphasized so much this emphasis upon morality. And I wonder if it was due to all the violence and uncertainty and instability he saw around him in his lifetime. Is this why he emphasized morality so much, or was it just because he felt that Buddhism had not emphasized this enough itself? And of course, the Bodhisattva vehicle would emphasize the 6 perfections of dana or charity, ethics, morality, patience, diligent effort, meditation or jhana, and development of prajna or wisdom. So this emphasis upon the human world was a marked departure in one of the main parts of his reforms. He felt it was necessary to develop our human character and morals first in order to meet the needs of the present time and the country. He felt this would improve the present world and help everyone to eventually move on to the Bodhisattva vehicle.
Is that all? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Sherry. Very good effort you put in. Cover very comprehensively. Venerable Taishi is said to be a proponent of humanistic Buddhism. And therefore, when we talk about humanistic Buddhism, we can't miss him. And we therefore have to talk about his concept of humanistic Buddhism. And his concept was to advocate the human path, or the Prusayana, and then leading to Bodhisattvayana. Now, this five vehicle concept was not an invention by Taishi. It was already in the Mahayana Buddhism. All that he did was to remove the emphasis from Devayana or Savakayana and re-emphasize on Purusayana, leading to Pachikayana. So when we talk about Taishi's concept, we must mention all these 5 yanas and give a description of all these 5 yanas. And then what Taishi advocated, that is to move to practice the Savaka, to practice the Purusayana, and then leading to Pachikayana. Because if we just stay at Purusayana, then it is no different from, say, Confucianism or any other earthly teaching. It must also move on to a higher level. And in Mahayana Buddhism, that higher level has always been Bodhisattvayana. So thank you very much on this. Let me see whether there's anything else that I need to add.
Could I have a question before we move on?
Yes, yes.
Because Sherry mentioned that when it's Divyayana, that we do not practice the 10 wholesome actions because that will lead to the heaven. So is that what it meant, not to practice those 10 wholesome ones and just stay with the 5 precepts? So we'll just focus on the human realm?
No, although we generally put Purusayana as following the 5 precepts, and then the next one, the Devayana, we follow the 10 wholesome actions. But you know, in Mahayana Buddhism, Purusayana and Devayana are usually taken together. We don't say Ren Chen, we say Ren Tian Chen. Means Purusayana and Devayana are practiced together. So when you say when he say practice Purusayana, it does not mean that it's just limited to just practicing 5 precepts. It also includes practicing many other things in Buddhism, except that the focus is on the 5 precepts. But other things like doing the 10 wholesome deeds, and then practicing the perfections, all this should also be practiced. I hope you are clear with that. This is just a simplification for us to understand what each yana emphasized. But it does not mean that if you practice Purusayana, then you don't have to do 10 wholesome actions.
But when Tai Shi says we talking about the humanistic Buddhism, he was not saying to to focus on 5 precepts and practice on this Purayana. I think he also meant use the Purayana as a base, focus on that until you practice well, then move on to Bodhisattvayana, right?
Yeah, that's why he linked the 2 things together. He mentioned Purusayana and then progress gradually to Bodhisattva path. But when so the Purusayana was his foundation. Humanistic Buddhism was his foundation. From there on, you move on to Bodhisattva path. But as you have to go on from the Bodhisattva path, you have to learn many other things along the way. For example, you have to practice the 10 wholesome actions. You have to do other practices as required. Let's say renunciation as required in Savakayana before you reach Bodhisattva path. So he was actually linking the path together. But he placed emphasis on, yes, but he placed the emphasis on human vehicles, because the tendency at that time was people are forgetting about the human vehicles. People are just going straight away to the Devayana or to the Savakayana. So he wants to bring the foundation back to the human status.
So we could understand in a way that these are different steps, different levels.
Yes.
So in order to reach up, human realm is your base. You need to do well at your base first before you move on.
Yes. And he emphasized that if you perfect your human base, then you are already a Buddha. So he was trying to refocus everything back onto the human base.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just now, Sherry mentioned about you don't understand why he was talking about morality. But I think it's a matter of translation. He was talking about Li, which means Vinaya. More appropriately translated means he was talking about have to follow the precepts. He was trying to say that the monks have to follow the precepts. So if you use the term morality, then you could not understand why he was emphasizing on morality. he was emphasizing on monks must follow the precepts. I hope that clarifies. Sherry?
Yeah, I also think the reason he wanted to not emphasize the Devayana so much is that traditionally there's an emphasis on meditation in that vehicle. And the wholesome efforts were often seen as just the support for your meditation so that your meditation could be better and so that you could enter the jhanas. And that when you entered the jhanas, you were assured of that rebirth in the God realm. And he did not want people to focus on that per se, but to keep it focused on the human life.
You are right. In fact, when people in China say they follow Devayana, they are not practicing the 10 wholesome actions. They are just praying that they would be able to go to the Western paradise. So it's to Tai Chi, they had deviated from the path given by the Buddha. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next question. You have done 9 and 10, right? Okay, now we have talked a little bit about politics. When we talk about humanistic Buddhism, we can't run away from the fact that arising from humanistic Buddhism, we are involved in politics. Okay, next.
Yes, I have.
Dennis, is it? Oh,
I think the number 10 discuss Tai Chi's revival proposal. Not done yet.
Dennis,
okay.
you're muted. Dennis, you're muted.
I have 11. Has 10 been taken care of?
No.
You're
10
taking
not-
number 10?
If nobody answered the number 10, I will answer number 10. Okay.
Good.
Because
Okay.
I chose the number 1, other boy answered that. So
Okay, Venerable.
Amitofo. Do you hear me?
Amitabha.
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
孔真是 go ahead.
Okay. 他都听不见。Discuss Taichi's revival proposals. His reform proposal. The one proposal is on the teaching. The must focus on this life, not focus on life hereafter. In the past, Buddhism was made a tool of the emperors to fool people with goals, gas, luck, misfortune. You must study the truth of life and the universe, leading human beings to progress. It is adapted to the thinking of the present time. It's the Buddhism of human life to construct by the human. That meaning is from human to Bodhisattva to Buddha. The proposal for organization with the advent of the republic, there has to be a new form of organization, but he replaced reclusiveness with illness practices and teachings and helping masses. Replace teachings of dead, ghost, and God with serving of making Buddhist organizations were based on monks and temples, which whenever Tai Chi argued was suitable to the time of the manner treated did not advocate to total abolishment of temples and monks. Rather, he proposed to have an all-powerful central body to regulate them. The proposal three properties of temples should be common properties of all numbers of the Sangha, cutting across sects or ordination lineages, eliminate private passing down of properties so that properties may be used to support virtuous orders, educate young monks, and other useful purpose. For discuss about this one objective of his organization or Sangha reform, to become an organization that preached the Dharma and benefit mankind, to train monks to carry on the Buddha's dispensation, to make the monastery truly an organization for promoting and benefiting sentient beings, and to cultivate monks capable of holding the Dharma, so that all the monks in the country are qualified to preside our Buddhism. This objective need a powerful central body to see its achievement. However, due to the variety of reasons, his organizational reform was not successful. It is my answer.
Thank you very much, Reverend, for your comprehensive coverage on this three-pronged proposal by Venerable Tai Shi. I re-emphasize here that Tai Shi's three-pronged proposal consists of three parts. Number one is on properties. Because at that time, temple properties, and some temples were very rich. They own lands and buildings and so on. But they were passed down from the monk to their own disciples. What Tai Shi was trying to propose was to have a central body in such a way that all these properties belong to a central body. Therefore, supposing the chief monk of one particular temple died, another monk from another temple can come over as the chief monk. That was his ideal proposal, that the properties belongs to one national organization and not to any particular temple or monastery. And this part, we know even until today, it is not practiced. Every temple owns their own properties. Then, the second part he proposed was on the teachings, which Reverend had covered very well. When we talk about his proposal for teachings, then his emphasis was to change their attitude from being ghost-oriented to humanistic Buddhism. And to humanistic Buddhism means to serve the people. And here, when you talk about his proposal for changes in the regards to teaching, is not to change the Buddha's teaching, but to re-emphasize on the importance of humanistic aspect. And therefore, we have to talk about the 5 vehicles that he proposed. I mean, the 5 vehicles in which he proposed to place emphasis on the human vehicle or the prasayana. And then the third of his proposal was in terms of organizations. We need to build up a strong Sangha system adapted to the modern Chinese environment, where he talk about the training of monks, so that monks go around preaching the Dhamma. So this was his three-pronged proposal. So if you like, you may do an evaluation whether all these three proposals was realized, or was it not really realized. This is up to you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this proposal have the three proposals. One is for teaching, one for Sangha, and one for the organization, same like a temple, monastery.
教产、教制、教理啊 ，three aspects. 教产、教制
，OK.
教产、教制、教理 ，OK. So you just remember the three words.
So the 教理 is like the property. OK.
教理 is teaching.
Teaching is 教理。
教制 is organization. So so there are only three aspects in this whole word. Okay, that was on the Venerable Taishi. Question number 10. Okay, go on. Next one, 11. What's number 11 now?
11 is a participation of monks in politics.
Yeah.
By definition, politics is making decisions for a group. Also, it ends up being a lot of positioning and acquiring power. And my understanding of Buddhism, I think, would be a contradiction if a monk was in politics and was making decisions for the whole group with the background of what we're aimed to in Buddhism, which is charity, purity, truthfulness, control over passions. In researches, I found out that Thailand denies a monk the right to vote. At the same time, they go ahead and utilize or encourage monasteries and whatnot to cultivate their culture so that Buddhism is the native religion of the country. You have another country that allows monks to actually run for office. And again, I think with understanding, if you're following Buddhism, how you can make decisions that are needed in a political office. Because a lot of times you're forcing your agenda, your priorities on someone that that might not agree with that. I think in the past where we've seen where the Christians took power in Chinese history, where the Chinese came in with the backing of the government and diluted the Buddhism there for that period. Buddhism fell out of favor in India earlier. The politics, it's probably because they weren't involved in politics. We have another country where Buddhism was followed by most of the people. Now they have a conflict with Muslims. The only answer I could come up with that the monks should not be involved in the politics, but have members of the Sangha become proficient and get in like on boards and powers of play or lobby their interest to protect the Buddhism. But my conclusion is I don't see how, if you're following Buddhism, you can actually exercise what's characteristic as a politician. Lobby what we want. Buddhism is supposed to be, watching social services are injustice. We have to do it rather than, I think, actually holding the office, because I think there'd be a conflict. Again, utilize, and we have that, and again, you have different countries with different political systems. If a government can be overthrown by a coup, where does that leave the Buddhist that's holding that office? In this country, I know for a fact that we have interests. The primary leaders aren't out there, but they have people that belong to that, like congregation or whatnot. You can see that where they're trying to influence their way of thinking or their priorities by maybe taking a majority on a board or something like that. But I would say the monks should not hold the office, but utilize people that are in their Sangha to pursue their interests and lobby for it.
That's it. Okay, thank you, Dennis. This is a topic which is controversial. Controversial in the sense that you can give your own answer, whether you agree or you disagree, or to what extent you agree or to what extent you disagree. So this is a rather liberal question, because even until today, the Buddhist community do not have a clear consensus on this. You will notice that in Thailand, until today, they actually still forbid monks from participating in politics. But there were some monks who went to the streets to demonstrate against the political parties or even against the king. In some countries, there was no legislation to prohibit participation in politics, and so some monks went for what they call lobbying for office as a member of parliament, and that also caused a division among the monks, because as we will see later, that sometimes consensus is not easy, and some monks they take different paths when it comes to politics. So this is a topic that if you are interested in, you can do a little bit more research and give your arguments. It's up to you. In my way of looking at this kind of questions, I do not say who is right or who's wrong. It's just a matter of looking at the arguments. So same thing for the 10 absurdities promoted by Ao Yang Qian. I only look at how you argue the case, and I'm not taking side, because even in Ao Yang Qian's case, there are some people who agree with him and some people who disagree with him. Okay, next item number 12, the Sangha and the Triple Gem. This is we were talking about lay Buddhism.
I have that one also. The Sangha, first of all, it's a Sanskrit word used in Indian language that includes Pali, meaning community. I think that's the key there. Also to bring together as part of the triple gems or threefold refuge, with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and of course the Sangha. It's also stated as the awakening one, his teaching, and his community. Again, the key word community consists of monks, monastics, and lay Buddhists. Originally, it was 4, which was lay men and lay women, was totally the 4 people. Also known as community of saintly people. It started with the followers of Buddha that would gather to reaffirm their sense of community and pose their beliefs, such as the threefold refuge and codes of conduct. Let's see. It evolved to present day where we would say the loop includes the lay Buddhist. The Sangha is important in the fact that even though it gives a sense of community, it reinforces our threefold refuge and other elements of Buddhism. It affects us also that even if we're away from the Sangha, we will adhere to what we learn, or the sense of community, or the people in the community that instruct us and do the beliefs in Buddhism. That's what I got on.
I'm willing to add a little bit more to Dennis's answer.
Yeah.
So in Theravada tradition, the Sangha actually means 4 pairs, 8 types of people, lay or monastics, doesn't really matter. So these are the once returners, non-returners, anagamis and sakurdagami. I don't know the English terms, but the first 4 types are the people who are on the path. The next 4 types are the people who have achieved those. So there are 8 types of people described as Sangha in Theravada tradition. How many? Supatipanno, Ujipatipanno, Nyayapatipanno, Samijipatipanno, Ahuniyo, Pahiriyo, Dakkiniyo, Anjalikaraniyo. 9. So there are 9 qualities of Sangha that's also described in Theravada tradition. Supatipanno is the threefold path, Sila Samadhi Panya. Those who follow those characteristics or practice those characteristics. Ujjapatipanno is avoiding extremes, following the middle path towards Nibbana. Nyayapatipanno is staying true to the Nibbana, again, following either the threefold path or the eightfold path, Noble Eightfold Path. Again, the goal is towards Nibbana. These are people practicing the goal towards Nibbana. Samajjipapanno, again, Samajjipapanno is being worthy of respected, not respected in the sense of salutation. Salutation is another one. Salutation is a different one. Samajjipapanno is being worthy of being received. For example, being offerings, preparing a seat, respectful speech, such and so forth, I believe. Ahuneyo is Ahuneyo, Pahiniyo, Dakiniyo, more or less all those three are worthy of being received offerings by various types of people. And Anjali Karaneyo is the one where a person who is worthy of being saluted in Theravada tradition. I think even in Mahayana tradition, we put together hands together and offer salutation. That's Anjali Karaneyo. Anjali means palms together, something along those lines. The last one, Anuttaram Punyaketang Lokasa. I think Anuttaram Punyaketang Lokasa is something to do with field of merit. It's a place where
highest field of merit.
There we go. Thank you so much. Yes.
Incomparable field of merit.
Yes, something along those lines. So just elaborating on Dennis's answer, this actually, so the wrong conception, at least in the Theravada tradition, the current conception is Sangha means monastics. It's not monastics, it's lay or monastic. Doesn't necessarily have to be monastic. It's eighth type of people. That's what I thought I'll add to Dennis's answer. Dennis also mentioned it. I just added some technical details.
Okay, thanks for the addition. This question asks about explain the Sangha from the perspective of the triple gems. So you have to talk about the triple gems. The Sangha as seen from the triple gems, not the monastic or the Sangha that we refer to in our daily life. The Sangha that we talk about in our daily life, when we see a group of monks together, we say Sangha. That is monastic Sangha. Monastic Sangha. It's a little bit different from the triple gem Sangha that we are talking about. So when you talk about triple gem Sangha, we have to quote, like what Toshika mentioned just now, from the 4 pairs of person and the 8 types of people. Okay, that is the triple gem Sangha. Triple gem Sangha refers to the 4 pairs, the community of the 4 pairs of person or the 8 types of people, regardless of whether they are lay people or not lay people. That is an important point that we must make clear. Okay? But in our daily conversation, when we talk about Sangha, we are talking about the monastic Sangha, not the Arya Sangha mentioned in the triple gem. So this has to be clear. Even today, most Buddhists are still not clear about this because this has required a little bit of conceptual skill. So most Buddhists would consider the monastic Sangha that we see as the Arya Sangha, which may not be the case. Okay, since we are on this topic also, and just now we mentioned about the incomparable field of merits, Punyaketang Lokasati. So when we talk about Aoyang Chen's case, where he mentioned that lay people is not field of merits, some of you in your answer mistaken to mean performance of merit. You know, it's not talking about performing of merit. It's talking about the field of merit, means the recipients of the dana. Okay, so Yang Chen was trying to say that those people who say that the lay people cannot be recipients of the dana is absurd. Meaning to say lay people can also become field of merit or recipient of dana from other people. So that was the argument. And I think he was not wrong in that sense, because in the Sangha triple gem that we talk about, we say incomparable field of merit, means it's the highest field of merit. But it does not mean that others are not field of merit. When you perform dana on other people, that other people also become field of merit, but it's not the highest. So I hope this is clear, that lay people can also become field of merit, but it's not the highest. Okay, but the monastic sangha or the Arya sangha, when we perform dana on them, they are the incomparable or very high field of merit. By the way, I also need to stress one more point, that sangha actually includes the Buddha. The Buddha on many occasions said, I'm also a member of the sangha. That's why in the Theravada Buddhism, dana to the sangha means automatically includes the Buddha. So we don't have to say Buddha dana and sangha dana. We just say sangika dana. Okay. So I think we already 11 o'clock now. We will take a break and then we continue later. Everybody back?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, we continue. The next topic we want to revise is on the activities or the role played by Venerable Chao Hui. Who would like to talk on this? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. I was
So
checking
anybody-
to see if that's question 14, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wendy said she was going to do that one.
But we haven't
Wendy,
done 13 yet.
No, we just did 13, didn't we?
No, Venerable Zhao Hui.
Oh, this is 13. Okay. Yeah, never mind.
13. Nobody is doing that?
If no one is gonna do that, what I have is I listed all her activities. Would that be sufficient?
Okay, you can pick it up.
Okay. She was the I think I don't in 1993 from 1993 to 1999 he became founder president of Care for Life of the ROC, successfully pressured the Legislative Assembly to pass the Protection of Wildlife Law and Animal Protection Law. And the next one she did was in March 1994. Guan Yin refused to move episode. She was a part of it, and she was very successful to stop the Guan Yin to be removed. And in 1999, she led a movement to declare Buddha's birthday as a national holiday. In 2000, the government agreed. And in March 30th, 2001, she openly called on the Dalai Lama, who was visiting Taiwan, to reinstate the bhikkhuni ordination. And on March 31st, 2001, at a conference to celebrate 96th birthday of Yin Sun, she openly called for the abolishment of the Garudama and tore away a copy of the Garudama to register her protest. On August 11, 2012, Zhao Hui officiated a lesbian marriage, the first Buddhist monastic to do so. On November 24th, 2016, she, in her capacity as a professor of Xuanzang University, testified at a hearing called by the Legislative Assembly. Then she openly condemned Venerable Wei Zhu of Chen Cai-shi, Wei Jie of Chen Cai-shi for taking sides in election. She, however, later openly supported the Green Party. She refused to be deputy governor of the Nantou district as she rejected the fusion of politics with religion. Her point: religion and politics should be separated. That does not mean that monastics should be completely out of political activities. Monastics are also citizens, therefore have the rights to be involved in politics. They are not second-class citizens. They have no reason to forego their rights. So that's what I got from the lecture notes.
Thank you very much for giving a very good summary of Venerable Chao Hui's activities, especially in Taiwan. She was considered as a representative figure for humanistic Buddhism, and especially when she claimed to be a direct disciple of Venerable Yin Shun, a very well-known proponent of the humanistic Buddhism in Taiwan. Thank you very much. And next topic.
Corey.
After
number 14.
After.
No, it's not
14.
me. Wendy.
Wendy.
Wendy
14?
Yeah, 14.
Yes, I do. Okay. So, number 14 question. Just a moment. Is discuss the characteristics of the Fo Guangshan model of humanistic Buddhism.
Yes.
Fo Guangshan is an international Chinese Mahayana Buddhist organization and monastic order based in Taiwan that practice humanistic Buddhism. In 1967 by Xing Yun, the order promotes humanistic Buddhism and is famous for its efforts in the modernization of Chinese Buddhism. Temples and organizations have been established in 173 countries all over the world, and now it encompasses more than 3,500 monastics. The organization emphasizes education and service, maintaining universities, Buddhist colleges, libraries, publishing houses, Buddhist auto-owners, and mobile medical clinics. It has also established children's rooms, retreatment home, high school, and a television station. There are several characteristics of Fo Guangshan model of humanistic Buddhism. First, the Dharma preaching language is different, in touch with the pulse of the current situation. This is very important because we need to know the current situation. Like before Xing Yun said, he liked what Tai Xu said, to be concerned with politics, but not to be involved in the administration. Then compatibility of Dharma and mundane teaching. Use illustration, little stories, conduct and speech in same. You can easily to find lots of Xing Yun videos online. Second, Dharma propagation method is different. to propagate Buddhist teachings through cultural activities, to foster talent through education, to benefit the society through charitable programs, to purify human hearts and minds through Buddhist practice. And third, the war to work for Buddhism is different from individual to the masses, from monastery to Buddhism, from Buddhism to other religions, from monastic to lay, human rights to rights of living beings, from unification to peace. Fourth, the objective of enlightenment is different, pure-lined in humanistic Buddhism, response to the world in humanistic Buddhism. According to the above four aspects of the different is the main characteristics of the Foguangshan model of humanistic Buddhism. And in general, humanistic Buddhism is different from the past Buddhism. Humanistic Buddhism can bring happiness, peace of mind Buddhism. The practice of human Buddhism can increase human morality, improve the atmosphere of society, purify the soul of the self, that maintain the order of society. Therefore, Buddhism on the world must be a brand future world. This is my answer.
Thank you, Wendy. The question asked for the four characteristics of Xingyin's model. So in each model that we mentioned, if you were to answer an exam question, it's not sufficient if you just mention the points that I gave you, because then it's not coherent and we cannot understand. So probably you have to mention, for example, to propagate religion through cultural activities. So maybe some example that he has organized many concerts in Taipei, and then for example, to foster talent through education, he has established universities and colleges to train the young people. So we have to a bit of more elaboration so that we can understand. Because what I have given you are the points only, okay? So anyway, it's a very good effort. And also another point that I would like to share with everyone is that when it is good that you talk more, but in examination, when you have no time, you only answer directly the question, okay? So for example, when the questions ask for only the four fundamental this characteristic of the Foguangshan model of humanistic Buddhism, then you only need to mention the characteristics. The other introductory parts and all the things is very good, but you carry no marks. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, because of a short time to prepare.
Okay. So this is to share. It's not only you. Many people actually you write more than what is required of the question. So what you when you write more than what is required in the question, I'm afraid in doing the examination you have not enough time. So you should straight away answer the question. Okay. Okay. Next. Discuss the four fundamental principles of humanistic Buddhism advocated by Venerable Ying Sun. We can't miss Venerable Ying Sun. So,
okay.
Leading the exponent of the doctrine of humanistic Buddhism. Lisa?
Yes, I will take on this one. Master Ying Sun believed that his thoughts on the humanistic Buddhism is originated from his studies of the Agamas and Vinayas, especially the Agamas. It was a powerful transforming process in his own study of Buddhism. That's what he said. So he said, these are what Buddhists should value most preciously: the origin of all Buddhist schools, the teachings of the Gautama Buddha, the sacred canons in Buddhism's early period. So out of his principle, there are four. The first one is the core theme, which is a human Bodhisattva Buddha, from human vows to practice Bodhisattva path, from completion of the path to become Buddha. And those who are practicing the Mahayana Bodhisattva way should spread the Dhamma and benefit the well-being of humankind. Their own purification and enlightenment come at the condition that they are not detached from the world or isolated from people. And number two, the fundamental principle is the doctrinal principle. Talking about the unity of Dhamma and Vinaya, unity of dependent arising with the voidness. Master Insun pointed out how the Gautama Buddha establishes his religious institution by unplanned preachings to different audience. So the thoughts of a Buddha, institution, and trends of Buddhism were all in course of constant adaptation to the condition of reality, which is impermanent. So Master Insun also said, the realm of the Dhamma is permanent, but Buddhism in the human realm, its thoughts, institutions, and trends are all subject to changes. For the unity of self-benefit and benefit others, social engagement was in essence to aid the world with the Dhamma. No matter how a Buddhist talk about his spiritual attainment, if he no longer cares about the fate of our nation, ever since his ordination, he is a traitor of the religion. For a practitioner of a humanistic Buddhism, the interest of the country and of the nation comes at the foremost of all, and a Buddhist faith is interconnected with one's concern with the nation. These are all Master Insun's words. And the third principle that he has is the contemporary trend, which is the error of youth, error of this world, error of collectiveness. So for the error of youth is try to place importance how to attract our younger generation to Buddhism, to Buddha's teachings. We need to help them to understand how to emphasize on the benefiting others. And for the error of this world, we need to know how to the services to mankind, preached the Dhamma. Buddhism's social engagement will modernize Buddhism in the course of reform, eliminating practices that are already outdated. By doing so, we can bring the Buddha's teachings to the nowadays daily living. And the next era of collectiveness, not only the Sangha must be legitimized, lay Buddhists practicing the Bodhisattva path must also be organized to benefit self and others. So the organization together can bring a lot more power to the society. And the last one, the last principle is the core mental development, which is based on faith, wisdom, and loving kindness. So the humanistic Buddhism is pivotal to all Buddhist schools, and it is associated with all sacred teachings. And that's what I got.
Thank you, Lisa. Well done. This Reverend Insun summarized his own concept of humanistic Buddhism or 人间佛教 into four main core themes. So this is often mentioned here and there when we talk about humanistic Buddhism. And I have summarized for you in very brief, but actually it comes to about, I think in Yinsun's own articles, about 10 pages. I have made into 3 slides. So if you were to answer this question, try to elaborate a little bit further. For example, whenever Yinsun talk about core mental development, based on faith or saddha, we were talking about the faith or the saddha in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, in the Triple Gem, in the Four Noble Truths, in the Four Noble Paths. We must have faith in these things. So we need to elaborate a little bit more. Okay, and Panya, wisdom, be able to discern what is right and what is wrong. So be able to see the truth as it is, rather than what it appears to be. And then the loving kindness, we need to develop our mind with loving kindness before we can talk about bodhicitta or body mind or things like that. So we need a little bit, just a little bit more elaboration to make it more coherent. Okay. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have the next topic. Social engagement activity of Buddhist organization in Malaysia. Anyone? Yes. Nobody?
Dato, that's your question.
That's my question. I think that's for me, is it? Okay, we skip this one first. This is the top. Actually, I think the question is too big. Too many things to talk about. It's too general. The question is too general. Okay, we go on to the next one.
All right, I'll do 17.
Mm-hmm.
So, the question is, discuss what were the causes that led to the decline of Buddhism in Vietnam during the French colonial period. So when Buddhism came to Vietnam during the 6th century, and it flourished during the Dinh Le and Tran dynasties, with eminent monks who were well-versed in Chinese language as well as the Dharma. And then from the 6th century to the 19th century, regardless of the Chinese rule, Vietnamese Buddhism kept its luster because Vietnam and China shared the same language and same religion. This eventually eliminated the need for translations of sutras from Chinese to Vietnamese. However, it became a problem when French arrived during the French colonial period. Since France became the protectorate of the nation in 1884, they brought in new culture and new science, and the citizens of the nation started favoring the Western studies. So naturally, Chinese studies started to decline, which started marking the decline of Buddhism. So it can be broken down into 5 points. The first point is the French colonizers brought Christian ideals into Vietnam. And the French wanted to protect their Christian ideals that they already implemented into Vietnam. So they had an increased number of French missionaries and traveled to Vietnam to convert more Vietnamese citizens. On the second point, violent repression and patronage towards Buddhists started happening. Vietnamese were used as laborers by the French and were hardly being paid enough to survive. The conditions in Vietnam in general were just creating a decline in Vietnam's population, making it more difficult to keep Buddhist traditions alive. On the third point, Buddhists started fighting back during this uprising. Buddhist scholars could see their culture and practices were diminishing with the presence of the French. So they started retaliating with movements and marches against the French. And then they started holding patriotic traditions. The various Buddhist traditions and organizations of Vietnam continued to be practiced, but Buddhists consisted of a majority of the Vietnamese population versus the French. And then that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you very much for identifying the causes for the decline of Buddhism in Vietnam. It's much more, it's a little bit different from the case of China. China was a lot due to the Manchu's policy, whereas in Vietnam it was due to partly due to the colonization that changed the language. But there may be other reasons, but I think for the time being, we suffice to say that the external factors was the most critical one. Okay, thank you very much. There's something a little bit about Vietnam. Then the next thing, the next topic.
Hello. Yeah, number 18. Discuss the causes that led to the Buddhist anti-persecution movement in Vietnam in the 1960s. So I've got the Hue Phat Dan shootings, reference the murder of 9 unarmed Buddhist civilians that happened on May 8th, 1963. This happened in South Vietnam at the hands of the army and security personnel that was led by Ngo Dinh Diem. He was the kind of like mastermind behind a lot of this. He was a Roman Catholic and persecuted the Buddhists and stripped them of their rights during his reign. The Buddhists that were killed protesting against the government ban of being able to fly a Buddhist flag on Vesak Day, the day of the Buddha's birth. It was Dinh Diem's favoritism toward Catholics and persecution of Buddhists that led to the crisis leading up to 1963. He had created law and regulation that favored Catholic and hurt Buddhists in many different ways, giving Catholics better public service positions, military promotions, allocations of land, business favors, and tax write-offs. Many officers in South Vietnam's military even converted to being Catholic, knowing if they wished to be promoted that they would need to do so to gain favor. There was even protection given from the Viet Cong in the form of military weaponry that was only given to Catholic villagers for self-defense. And of course, Buddhists in the army, as mentioned earlier, were refused promotions unless they converted to become Catholics. Some Catholic priests even had their own armies, and they would raid, shell, and loot Buddhist pagodas. Diem never lifted a ban on Buddhists being able to conduct public activities. That was put in by some other ruler before him. The U.S. aid, even during these warring times, was given to Catholics over Buddhists. And all this led up to those shootings that happened. And it was just a huge moment when the government allowed the flying of the yellow Catholic papal flags, but not the Buddhist flags. That was something else that led to that issue happening on Vesak Day.
Yeah.
I guess. Soon after that, there was a protest led by Thich Tri Truong against the government, and they were suppressed by Diem's forces again. And that's where the unarmed Buddhists were killed. And of course, Diem denied all that. And then that also, of course, led up to the self-immolation of Thich Quang Duc and then other monastics later on to protest against the government.
It's interesting to note that the 9 citizens that were killed, 2 of them were 12 years old, and the rest of them were all under 20. So they were really children that were killed. And that's really what incensed the country. The fact that they would kill children and then deny it.
Well, that was a very sad period of history of Vietnam.
I do have a question about that period, Dato. What happened to Madame Nhu? She was in the United States when her husband and brother-in-law were assassinated in November 1963. She was, I guess, allowed to leave the United States. She went to Rome, then eventually to Paris. But since her assets had been seized, how was she able to make a living? I know she gave interviews for money later on, but she lived until she was 84. And
she lived in a villa, actually, in the south of France. I don't know where she got her money. Do you, Dato?
Well, most politicians were rich, or politicians are rich. They were not poor people. They were the whole family was from an aristocrat family. That's why they were chosen. India was chosen by the king to be the prime minister at first. And later on, when South Vietnam was formed, he became the president. So they were from very rich family. And like practically all politicians in the world over, they were all very rich. Well, I always say that politics has to a lot to deal with resources. They were not poor. So Madame Ngo was in USA when the coup took place that killed her husband and her husband-in-law. Sorry, her husband and brother-in-law. And from there she left and went to stay in France and live comfortably in France.
How much do you think the anti-Buddhist sentiment was contributed to by the history of how do you say his last name? Ngo? NGO? How do you say it?
Madame Ngo.
No, not Madam. The DM family name, NGO.
Oh, if Vietnamese is Nguyen.
Nguyen. So his father's family was killed by a Buddhist mob, supposedly. Is there any truth to that?
No. The president was killed by his own army people. The coup was by his own army people.
No, not the president. The president's father.
Oh, the president's father. The president's father. I do not know. The president's father was also a politician, but I do not know how he died.
So my research found that his entire family, his mother, his father, his brothers and sisters, were all murdered by some kind of Buddhist mob that herded them all into 100 people into a church and then burn it down. And I'm thinking, if that happened to my family, I might have some negative feelings towards Buddhists too. I just wonder if that colored the way he treated the Buddhist population, because the Buddhists were 90% of the country.
But you're right, and he was born into a prominent Roman Catholic family, and he was educated at the French-speaking schools. So he was kind of a product of that French colonialism, where all the schools sort of converted to free education as long as you speak French.
Yeah. I'm not sure about his family history. But we all know that the president's father was also a politician during the emperor's time. But I do not know the details. Thank you very much for the research. Maybe we should just dig a little bit more, find out. Okay. Shall we leave Vietnam now and go for another country? Shall we go to Sri Lanka now?
Toshita?
Sure, I can talk about it.
Thank you.
Why is the Buddhist Renaissance in Sri Lanka called Protestant Buddhism? So it's fascinating. Before this class, I've never heard the term Protestant Buddhism, especially associated with Sri Lanka. So I started doing research just for that fact, because I didn't know Sri Lankans were considered Protestant Buddhists. But then again, it kind of makes sense.
Well, these are the work of scholars. Sometimes people in the movement also do not realize that we were labeled this way, that way, you see.
Right. Well, I appreciate your kindness, but if you're a frog on a hole, you don't know you are in a hole. So I guess we are a Protestant Buddhist. So I'm fine with it, honestly. I fully embody it if that's what it is. Anyway, going off topic. So the little bit of research I've done, the Protestant Buddhism, there's reasons to it. So when the British predominantly ruled Sri Lanka, so before British, Portuguese ruled Sri Lanka, Spanish ruled Sri Lanka, and then the British ruled Sri Lanka. Predominantly the British, they, just like everywhere else, they wanted to embody their mark. So missionary schools, the school system was very Catholic oriented. Education was Catholic oriented, much like in Vietnam, to a lesser, well, I wouldn't say lesser extent. So if you want to do a government job, you pretty much had to convert to Christianity or have a Christian name and such and so forth. So long story short, there was resentment growing within the country itself against the colonialism. So the Protestant Buddhist, the notion of Protestant Buddhism here in one part refers to this protest against Christianity, their colonialism, and being a majority Buddhist country, people organizing around Buddhists, it became, I guess, protesting Buddhists became Protestant Buddhists or Protestant Buddhism. That's one part to the Protestant Buddhism notion in Sri Lanka. The other part of the discussion is, which is again fascinating to come to think of it, but I think it makes sense. In Sri Lanka, I'm strictly speaking based on my own experience. In Sri Lanka, we don't really rely on monks, or, well, I take it back. Monks are not considered an authority by any means. I guess that's one luxury of living in a country where, the sutta was first became written. People read. There's abundance of text. People are exposed to original sutta or the Tipitaka. So people read. People don't really strictly rely on monks to learn Buddhism. In that sense, it's that notion of Protestant in the sense of Christianity, where there's a little bit of freedom or disassociation with the monastics, or freedom to learn, freedom of authorities. So there's two aspects of Protestant Buddhism in Sri Lanka: protesting against the colonialism, organizing people around those lines, and Protestant Buddhism in the sense of not going by not strictly under the authority of monastics. So again, that's just based on a little bit of research I've done.
Okay, thank you, Toshita. In fact, sometimes Buddhist movement, the labor that was used by the Buddhist movement was not used by people in the movement. So, for example, when the monks in Myanmar, in Vietnam, were protesting against the government for their persecutions, they did not use the word socially engaged Buddhism. It was just a movement to anti the government. Then later on, the label was used by Thich Nhat Hanh to label that kind of movement. And later on, scholars use the term socially engaged Buddhism to describe the movements that emerged in Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and India, or even Thailand in the 1950s, 1960s. So sometimes scholars use all these terms. We say that it's like a study model, so that it's easier for us to understand. That's all. People in the movement may not label themselves that way. Just like in Malaysia, there was a scholar from Hong Kong that labeled our movement in Malaysia as a socially engaged Buddhist. But we were in the movement for so long and we did not come across the words socially engaged. Only until recently we come to realize that we have been labeled as socially engaged. Anyway, this is a professor from Sri Lanka who said that the Buddhism in the Buddhist revival in Sri Lanka, he used the term Protestant Buddhism, and that makes it very interesting because the same kind of movement in Taiwan, in China, promoted by Tai Chi, was called Humanistic Buddhism, but it's called by a different name. In fact, there was no specific slogan used in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan people like Alankarika Dhamapala or H.S. Kokot, they were just in the Buddhist movement. They did not use any specific label for that. But scholars use the word humanistic, Protestant Buddhism. I believe that was because the internal strength of Sri Lankan Buddhism was still strong enough to bring about its own rejuvenation without like in the case of China, to re-emphasize something. And according to Obersekler, the professor who coined it as a Protestant Buddhism, one of the reasons for being Protestant Buddhism means in Buddhism itself, it brings along, for example, carol singing during Vesak. This you borrowed from Christianity. It was not part of traditional Sri Lankan Buddhism. And then the funeral houses, we have a chanting of this Jatakaya, I think. Probably in the past they don't have. And then the Buddhist Sunday schools, which was introduced into not only Sri Lanka but also Malaysia. But this was actually copied from the Sunday schools of the Christians. And then you have the YMCA, Young Men Buddhist Association. Even the name was actually copied from Young Men Christian Association. And we begin to learn about reading scriptures, reading services, whereas in the past we only know how to do chanting. So this was a sign of learning from the Christian. That's why it has the word Protestant Buddhism. So it is Protestant in two ways. Influenced by the Protestant ideals such as freedom of religious institutions, freedom of conscience, and focus on individual interior experience. A protest against the claims of Christian superiority. So they are in two ways. So thank you very much. It's about time now. I think we don't have time for another topic. Perhaps we'll end here and then we'll continue later tomorrow morning for you, tonight for me. Okay.
Yeah, Datu, will you give us which 8 questions that will be on the mock exam?
Oh, mock exam will be only given just before the exam.
Because in the past we were given 8 questions to practice, and then say out of the 8, then there are 4 we have to answer.
Yes,
so
yes, but those, I had forwarded the questions, but those questions were only released to you when you sit for the mock exam, just before the examination.
So you don't have like a set of questions for us to prepare?
It was not normal practice. It was just Bhante Upananda who did that. So.
Yeah. So normally, Lisa, we get like what we're supposed to study, not here's what the questions are going to be. But yeah, we don't.
Nice try though.
Yeah.
Plus, this is a mock exam. So
yeah, they've given us some. I mean, not directly have they said here's 4, but I think even Sayadaw did give like. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the 4, but I kind of know what she's implying. Like, I can see where she would think of that. I think Sayadaw did like 8. Of course, Bhante Upananda, who we had for 2 classes, he did do it both times. Bhante Kusala also did something pretty close to that. So I get her asking it, but I also, of course, understand Dato.
No, the teacher not supposed to give us. If the teacher give you some hint, maybe just to help you, but not supposed to give you any questions.
Let's just not pressure Dato one way or the other. Let him do it whatever the way he wants to do it.
Right.
We need to be respectful. He's a teacher, so just be respectful of his way and just do. I mean, it's a mock exam. What the heck? Nothing. You are not going to lose anything.
No, the mock exam is an exam, so it will be like an exam. Okay, so the question will be released to you just before the examination. But by going through the whole course of lecture and by going through the revisions, I think all of you will do well. You already know quite well what subject matters. So why worry about examination? Examination is not the important thing. Important thing is to learn, okay?
Couldn't
you in
have
the
said it any
morning.
better.
7
But
a.m.
important
Dato.
is-
No, 6:30 tomorrow, huh?
6:30, yeah.
Okay.
6:30 our time, AM.
6:30. Is it too early for you?
6:30 Augusta time.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, it's fine.
Augusta, what? You Augusta, Georgia?
It's fine for
I'd be
us.
early.
We have one person in California that's a little bit earlier.
Oh,
but
wow.
4:30.
Ah,
Oh,
a
wow.
little. That's like, is that 3 hours or 2 hours?
2.
2 hours.
Two.
But yeah, it makes it very late for you if we go any later because we had our time change because
Yes.
America is stupid with time changes. But so I can speak for myself and only myself. I don't have a problem with it being that early. I'm normally up
Me
at
neither.
4:30 anyway.